ladies and gentlemen, the star of Politically Incorrect, Bill Maher.
Thank you very much. All right, welcome to our show. Let's meet our partner, a prolific actress and a chair of the Screen Actors Guild Ethnic Employment Opportunity Committee, Anne-Marie Johnson. There you are. Hello, how are you doing? Nice to see you again. She's a writer of a syndicated radio music show and the president of the Media Action Network for Asian Americans, Mr. Guy Aoki. Guy. How are you, sir? Glad to have you here. She is a very funny comedian and star of the upcoming series Greg the Bunny, Sarah Silverman.
What are you laughing at?
And he's a big movie star, and if you can't afford a movie, he's also on Just Shoot Me. David Spade is right over here. Thank you, Bill. There you go. Okay.
All right.
Look at that.
Let's get it on.
See the power of free television?
Wow.
All right. Well, needless to say, we're going to tell your joke again. Now, if the people don't know, Sarah Silverman was on Conan O'Brien about, years ago at this point.
You're right.
And she told a joke which she meant to be funny. It offended certain members of the Asian community. You asked for equal time. You have it here tonight. We have to set the stage by telling the joke again. Let's hear the joke. Tell it as quickly as you can. Because I'm sick of it by now.
Likewise. It's a joke about getting a jury duty notice, and you got to fill out this form, and you send it in, and you're randomly selected, and I don't want to do jury duty.
No one does.
So I'm filling out the form, and my friend said, why don't you write something really inappropriate, like I hate chinks, you know? And I'm thinking, yeah, but when you think about it, I don't want people to think that of me, you know? I just want to get out of jury duty. So I just filled out the form, and I wrote, I love chinks. Thank you. That's the joke, you know. It's a joke. It's a joke that points.
So where is the joke?
Well, I have to say that that's not the biggest laugh I've ever heard a joke get, but it did get a laugh. And considering the setup here, stacked against that joke, that means that joke is still funny.
Really?
Well, if with this setup, that joke still got any kind of a laugh, you got to give something to that joke.
Well, can I point something out for the initiative, for those who don't know? I mean, calling a Chinese person a chink is the same thing as calling a black person nigger.
Absolutely.
This is the way we take it, and we don't think that racial slurs should be used in this kind of off-the-cuff kind of way, because it gives more permission for people to use it in less appropriate situations.
If I may just interrupt for 1 second to address our censors directly. This is going to be a show about race and some of the terms people use. Please, I know it's ABC policy to bleep out these words. It's just going to make you look silly. Let us have an adult discussion. The show is on after midnight. We're not using it in a way to offend people.
This is the most appropriate time to use this language, because we're using it
but we're not using
in context.
We're not using it
for a reason.
to be right. We're not using it to be vulgar. We're trying to have an open discussion about this.
And an honest discussion.
And I believe that comedy reflects society, and I feel that that joke is a joke that points a finger at racism, just like it's your job to point your finger at racism. And I think that it's inappropriate and it's counterproductive to demand an apology for someone who, like you, is illuminating racism just for doing it in a different way that you do it.
I think you're giving yourself too much credit. I think that, first of all, I understand satire. She said this was satire, it was taken out of context. I said there was no context. I enjoy good satire. I mean, satire is a great device for making great points through comedy. But if you don't know how to do satire correctly, you make situations worse.
You're going to tell me how to do satire?
You make people
no, but
believe. Let me finish my point. If I can finish my point.
I'm trying to.
If I can finish my point.
That's what my act is about.
If I can finish my point. If you don't know how to do satire correctly, you run the risk of making people think that you really believe what you're saying. And until you know how to do satire correctly, I'd stay away from it.
But look at the thought it's provoked.
So you're telling me, you are telling me, sir, that there is some joke that could use the word chink, done correctly, satirically,
I think it's
that would
difficult.
be okay.
No, I don't
Wait a
think-
second. That's what you said. You said it just wasn't done correctly. So what? Give me an example.
No, I
of-
am just addressing one of the points she said, which was satire. I'm saying it wasn't good satire anyway, but I'm saying...
But that
subjective.
implies
No.
that some joke would be of such good satire that she could have said chink.
What she
Okay,
could have
may I-
said,
may
what she
I-
could have said, she could have said, I hate Chinese people, I love Chinese people. Would have gone, okay, funny joke, haha, and that would have been over
That's
with.
not the point
The
of
point
the
is you
joke.
use a slur
The
that you
point.
thought you could get away with on national television.
That's absolutely not
You
true.
would
I
not
used to
have
say
said
with
the
nigger, and
N-word
I have
on
said
the
that
same
on
context.
Conan the
NBC
last
would
time.
have shut
Has
you
it ever
down.
been edited out?
No.
So on Conan O'Brien, you said a joke using the N-word, and it was never edited out.
That's right. You can get the tape.
The thing that irks me was that Sarah came onto this show to defend herself, to save face. And, you know, people didn't give me the courtesy of asking me to be on here and talk for myself, but here I am.
You've talked to yourself in countless
But
newspapers.
anyway, so she comes on the show here, and she says, she comes on like a wounded bird. And she goes, you know, this guy, Aoki, he has cast my name with racism in thousands of periodicals across the country,
Right.
and it hurts. I want an apology from him. Well, think of the hurt that you felt and multiply that by the millions of people that you offended by using that word, and I think you get a little bit of a sense of what we feel.
You know what?
One other point.
Well,
One other point. You know, when you're playing with racial slurs, you're playing with fire. And if you're going to be playing with fire, expect to get burnt.
And you know what?
That is so jackass.
You know what? This is why I find this really fascinating, and I'm glad you're having this discussion because it needs to be had. We need to have an open dialogue about race, racism, sexism, homophobia. Here's the thing. I'd rather be here talking about a movie. I'd rather be here talking about other issues. But because racism and sexism and other deplorable attitudes and behavior is so prevalent in our society, we have to talk. I'm tired of talking about this.
But I'm not,
I am
and that's
so
what I
tired.
do.
But I don't want to convert anyone. I'm talking to my choir because I can't tell you how many times I'm at a dinner table or I'm playing golf or whatever, and I have to hear someone say, oh, he really Jewed me down on that, or he was slow as a nigger, or look at that beaner run, and then I have to say,
Who are you hanging out with?
who do you hang out with?
God.
Let me tell you. When I am in a company,
well, that's what you get when you play golf.
there you go. But when I'm with a mixed crowd, I cannot tell you 99% of the time someone is going to make a racial slur.
And the fact that that exists, that's what I
your
address.
joke isn't helping it.
If you want
Yes,
to,
it is.
Yes,
Sarah,
it is.
Sarah,
Yes, it is.
Sarah, if you
Look
want
at
to
this.
make a
We
joke,
wouldn't have
it's-
this forum
it's
if I
only-
didn't tell that joke.
can I make a point?
It's
if you
only
want to
not
make a joke,
helping it in amongst the hypersensitive.
If you want to talk about the Jewish community and make jokes about them, that's fine.
constantly
That's
do.
fine. But once you start making about other ethnic groups, there's a different element that comes into place with this thing.
Yeah, it
I mean,
provokes
I don't
thought.
think people really understand the hurtfulness of this word. I mean, whether it's nigger or chink or Jap, these words have been used to subjugate minorities, to make them out to be less than human. Once we make these people less than human, we can do awful things to them.
Yes, but
okay?
those-
The Native
we
American
we
Indians.
can lynch Chinese men at the turn of the century when there's too many
But
of
it
them,
is not
or
of
they
the,
get too
but
uppity.
it is not the turn
We can
of the
put-
century, sir. It is
If I
the
can
turn
finish,
of the
sir,
other century.
If I can finish, sir. In the 1940s, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor,
Yeah.
right, people were saying Jap this, Jap that. They called people Japs so much that 120,000 Japanese Americans, loyal Japanese Americans, could be put
Yes.
in internment camps for 3 years while everyone else stood by because they were
And
just
that was
Japs.
wrong.
But
Awful,
wait,
and
but
how
more
is that
recently,
analogous?
but more recently,
And more
an
recently.
Asian American student was stabbed to death. He was of Chinese descent, and the assailant wrote "chink" on his car. Now we're talking about a month ago. We're not talking about
Yeah,
turn
and
of
we're
the
talking
century.
about a lone nut, and to indict the entire society
We're not
for that
indicting
is
the entire
disingenuous.
society,
Of
Bill.
course you
No,
are.
we're not.
I'm just
To say
indicting
that
Sarah.
what
We're putting it
I'm
in
just indicting
context.
Sarah.
There
Words
are-
I have to take a
There are
commercial. We'll
words
come
hurt.
back to this subject. All right. Now, David Spade, you took a bye on the first round.
Yeah.
But was it
Just-
because your name? Because you felt that your name
Yeah.
disqualified
Your
you
name
for this
offends me.
discussion?
That's getting me in trouble. No, I just feel like, I mean, it gets real heavy and deep here, obviously. I do agree with Sarah where, on one hand, it's, in comedy, I do the same thing. I mean, there's things I do, and you take risks in comedy, and Richard Pryor did, and everyone does, and you kind of offend, just to shake people up, and that's the way it is. Some people get hurt, and some people like it, and you move on, but it is comedy. You're not seriously saying these things. If you were on a talk show just saying, I really believe this, and these are, and this is what I think, then I think it's more offensive. The other thing is I get offended if I see black comics talk about Whitey, and I know it's not as rough as chink or the N-word, but I don't like that either, and they can do that night and day. I mean, Chris Rock, who's a great friend, can say,
here's the difference.
The white man makes toast like this, and he's an idiot, but the black guy. I mean,
but you know what? Racism and discrimination is about power. And once, if ever...
I agree with you.
The
There's
power
a double
structure,
standard for a reason.
Exactly.
Because we are two different races with two hugely different histories.
Exactly.
However, you were talking about, you said, the turn of the century. Now, I have an issue about, you called it the N-word. I say that, you know, blacks are like, whites cannot say this word. I disagree. This word has changed in the last 10, 15 years.
According to who?
According to culture, according to the fact that
Ask
it's in
any
every...
African-American person in this
Every
audience.
African-American person in
what
this
that
room
means,
uses
man.
that word night and day.
No,
it's in
you're
every
wrong.
song. It's all
You're
through
wrong.
culture. Could
You're
I finish
wrong.
my point before you attack
Yes.
it? Okay. The word has changed. It has been co-opted as a term of endearment. There is a bad old word.
From blacks to blacks.
I think I'm the only one
from
qualified
blacks to
here
okay.
to talk about
All right,
this
wait a
issue.
From blacks
second.
to blacks. There's
First
a very
of all,
different
I wouldn't
dynamic.
even know you were black if you didn't tell me.
Does it matter
No, it
about
doesn't
color?
matter. No, it doesn't
Attitude?
matter. But
See,
lots
this is
of-
what I love. I love when white people try to define African Americans. What is African American? What is an African American? I'm African American
Okay.
regardless of my skin color or my hair or my clothes or my attitude, and I think I'm the only one on
But-
the stage who's qualified to talk about the meaning of the word, how it hurts, how it doesn't hurt, where it's used, the history
Okay.
of it, because I live it every day.
It's in every song. It's in every song on the radio, okay? The nigga, 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 nigga is in every song, okay? People come up to me and go, Bill, you a nigga. But I can't say thank you, or I go, no, please don't use that word, or I can't use that word back. There's a rap group, Niggas with Attitude. My mother said to me, well, NWA. She said, what does that mean? So I have to say, Mom, it means something with attitude. I mean, I'm saying when the word has come this far into the mainstream, for a very good reason, they co-opted the word to make it less powerful in a hurtful
But
way.
that's amongst blacks, not for white people to call black people niggers.
I'm
That still
sorry,
doesn't
We're
work.
not
but
calling-
I'm sorry. I still disagree with African Americans using the terminology because it proves that these young performers don't know the history, don't know what it is.
History changes.
No,
True. Words evolve
history
so much.
doesn't
Words
change
evolve.
that fast, and
They
we still
do.
have African Americans being lynched from trees with
No, we
nigger
don't.
being burned on their back. And if it doesn't happen in America, it happens in Europe. And let's think about what happened in what was Washington, the state of Washington, just a couple of years ago, where an Ethiopian was lynched. So listen, folks, it's not a word that we can use. Please pass the tea. Could you pass me the nigger too? It still hurts.
That doesn't even make
If I can say
sense.
something what David was saying earlier about humor, because the one thing I have a big problem with is when you came on this show a few weeks ago and you said she didn't really believe that the term chink hurt me. I was just using it to get attention for myself. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Now, what Anne-Marie Johnson was saying earlier...
tell you something.
Let me tell you something. What Anne-Marie Johnson was saying earlier is very true. A few weeks ago, right here in Southern California, in Laguna Hills, California, a Taiwanese-American family was having a lot of problems with racial hatred in their community, okay? And it ended with this 17-year-old boy, Kenneth Chu, being stabbed to death. And they found on the back of his car, etched, chink. But I bet you would say that his family should take some comfort in knowing that the term didn't really hurt him.
To link
I've made
that
jokes
is
about the
hurtful
Holocaust,
to
and I have
us.
people in my own family that hurts deeply. But I feel strongly about what I talk about, that it isn't racist. It's about racism. You know, you've attacked
I think you should
crazy
respect
people.
the
He
group
went
that
up
you
and
target.
attacked
You should
Susan
respect the
Sarandon, who we
feedback
all
of the
know
group
is
that you
racist
target.
despite her
That-
thin
that is
veneer
It's easy
of
for you to say
years
But
of
it is-
I'm an equal
humanitarian.
opportunity
But excuse
offender.
me,
I can
sir.
make fun of all these people. What do you ask us how we feel about it? We'll tell
but
you if it's okay
it
or
is a
not.
cheap,
And you
not
know that
okay.
I love hearing about
Wait
it.
a
and
second. It is a cheap political trick to somehow link that horrific crime
Yeah,
to
that's
a
so
joke.
bad.
by this.
She
It's-
said
of
the
course
word
that-
didn't hurt me. This
I'm
hurt.
talking
That's
about
this
you.
attitude.
I'm not
this
talking about all
and by
Asian
extrapolation,
Americans.
the Asian American community. This attitude, this word, and the attitude and the hatred behind that word chink,
You know-
killed this guy.
You know what? There are only two Asian people I know that I don't like. One is you, and the other is...
I'm hurt.
Yeah,
I want
and
an
the other
apology
is
from
my
you.
friend Steve, who actually went pee-pee in my Coke.
Okay, I have to take a break.
Yeah,
from
he's
here.
like,